Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this talk on the global consensus on sustainability in the built environment, the so-called Globe Consensus. And for me, it's a very great honor and a great pleasure to present this project, which has been hard work over the course of the last 1.5 years approximately, and which will really make a change in the built environment in the future. My name is Wolfram Schmidt, but I am just one person that contributed to the Globe Consensus. There are quite many people, and here are the names of those people who have worked on that, who have dedicated their time, their knowledge, and their inspiration. You can see there are quite some great names on that list to make this a success. There are some few people who have done even more than the others by also supporting the formal process of getting all this arranged in the right way to the situation where we are now, and later you will see where we are now. And these individuals who have really had an outstanding contribution are Judith and Johann, Michael, Carmen and Don. But now let's look at the overall framework, and if we take a look at the challenges that we face as human species on this planet, the most dramatical ones for our existence are armed crisis, poverty, hunger, health issues, and migration. These challenges are really something that affect humanity in its entirety, but they are also challenges that we face today which are more of technical and environmental nature. And these are habitat, infrastructure, urbanisation, environment, and resource depletion. And if we take a closer look at these challenges, we can see they are all linked to the construction sector, to the built environment. And if we take a look at the huge global construction demand, in the northern hemisphere it's more the maintenance, in the southern hemisphere it's more the build-up of the relevant structures and infrastructures and urban structures, we can see that this causes a lot of pressure on our environment. There are tremendous carbon emissions linked to that. And that is certainly dramatic, but at the same time we should also not only consider this as a challenge, but we should also see that this huge construction demand, which is inevitable, also offers a chance to make the entire global construction business more sustainable than it has ever been before. If we can manage to create a really sustainable built environment where we can save materials, use materials as efficiently as possible according to the individual strengths of the different material types, if we can manage to create livelihoods made out of materials and constructions and the built environment, and if we can enhance the communication between the different players, the different societies and human beings, we automatically contribute to those humanitarian challenges that were mentioned initially. So that means the construction business can never be uncoupled from societal and environmental aspects. They always mutually interact, and that has to be done in a sustainable way in order to master the challenges of the future. And these challenges are really huge. For example, if we take a look at the urban development in different regions in the world, we can see that if we take a look at the 20 most populated cities in the world in the year 2100, we can see these cities are huge cities like Lagos with 88 million inhabitants, or Kinshasa, Dar es Salaam with 84 million and 74 million respectively. And we can also see another aspect, that there is a shift from the location where the big cities will grow in the future. This will be in either Africa or in Asia. And Africa is particularly of interest because 13 out of these 20 cities are on the African continent. And that is interesting from the point of view that of those buildings, those urban buildings that will be built in the year 2050, only 20% in Africa have already been built. The other 80% are going to be built over the course of the next 30 years. And that is a tremendous potential to make it better and learn from the past, because we don't have time, considering the lengthiness of construction process, to wait for another 30 years just to learn that we repeated the mistakes of the past, but we have to act now. And these actions have to be global, they are urgent, and they have to be immediate. But how can this development be made sustainable? And sustainability is a word that people are using in many, many different contexts, and it's very difficult to find a common formulation for that. But probably one of the most popular formulations is the formulation that was defined in the report Our Common Future, which was developed by the Brundtland Commission on behalf of the United Nations, published in 1987, where it is stated, sustainable development is development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That is a wonderful formulation and very clear, and it contains the future generations, because that's what sustainability is all about. But if we think that consequently forward, in order to learn something about sustainability, it's not only to think about our future generation, but also to ask our future generation how they want the next future generation to live on that planet. And this is the question that we asked children from less privileged settlements in Tanzania and in Kenya, together with some colleagues. We asked them, how would you like your children to live? And I'm not going to present all the results here, but I would like to present one highlight given by Josephine.
My name is Josephine. I would like my children to have more freedom and live in a simple house, built with materials which don't destroy the environment and has enough space for my kids to play.
So she would like to live in a simple house, which is environmentally friendly, but the house should also have an impact on the freedom and the space for the children to play. And that shows how heavily structures and society have to be connected. And indeed, for us as civil engineers, as builders, it makes a difference whether we build a bridge which has the capacity to connect people, or whether we build a wall that separates people, keeps them either in or out. It has a societal impact, and this societal impact is also underpinned by the fact that if we take a look into popular music, we find so many songs that contain the theme of a civil engineering structure. Also in literature, this is highlighted in so many famous books. Or if we take a look at religion or mythology, we find stories about bridges, stairs, or walls. So structures are part of the human society since human beings exist. But for the future, we always think that technology and standardization are the core to bring us a more sustainable built environment. But we have to question that. Let's think about technology. Today, everybody is talking about 3D printing, and I'm not going to say anything against it. It's certainly a technology that is very promising for the future. This picture was chosen, it was developed for the German Research Foundation's priority program Opus Fluidum Futurum, where different research groups, including my own, are working on better understanding and more fundamental understanding of the rheology to control processes. And the artist here was dreaming of robots producing concrete elements, pumping, doing the casting, and also doing the calculation by artificial intelligence automatically. And the human component in this picture is getting very, very small. This is certainly a future we can look at. It will be a very interesting future, but we should also rest for a moment and think, because there's an experience that I personally made when I entered this structure. It is the Great Mosque in Casablanca. At the time I was visiting it, it was the biggest mosque tower in the world, and I was visiting this structure and I was seeing a lot of these elements beautifully repeated ornaments, and I was overwhelmed when I saw this. It was so beautiful. And you could think that exactly these elements are those which are ideal for a 3D printing process. A 3D printer could do that in no time, in absolute perfection. But the thing is, I was overwhelmed because it was not perfect. What you can feel, what you can see, that this was made by artisans from different parts of Morocco, and they put their heart and their soul into these structures. They were not perfect, but they were beautifully imperfect, and that probably can become more sustainable because it outlasts in its beauty a perfectly shaped structure by a machine. I don't want to say 3D printing is something negative. I just want to say the technology you choose also has an implication which has a more societal component. And that also applies for standardization. We always think if we just have enough standards, we can build safely and everything is fine. But honestly, a standard is like medicine. So if your system is down, you take medicine and it helps you to get healthy. But if you take too much of the medicine, it becomes poisonous. And that is what a standardization framework can really become. And particularly if we look at the situation that we have at the moment, where the construction business is entirely driven by cost considerations, then the standard is nothing more than the maximum level that can be achieved, because outperforming the standard would be too expensive. And then the standard is nothing but a document that secures mediocrity. Officially approved, but mediocre. And mediocrity is exactly what we are not in need of in order to bring our built environment to the next, a more sustainable level. So technology and standardization are something that are very important, but they have to be considered with a little bit of care. And I would like to highlight that with a dramatic example. These pictures I have taken when I was visiting Cape Coast Castle in Ghana. That was one of the big slave trade hubs from Africa to the Americas. And now there's a museum, and you can also learn a little bit about the construction history, about the technology, how engineers overcame the challenges of the nature, of the climate, and so on. It's interesting, but if you would stroll around, you would even say it's beautiful to walk there. But if you're in front of the church where people pray to heaven, there's a gap in the ground, and you can look right into the face of hell. People were stacked upon each other in chains, lying in their own feces, just waiting for the moment the next ship docks, where they can leave through the door of no return, where their life is destined to either end on the ocean or to become a slave for the next generations in a foreign continent. So what I want to say here is that these structures that we can see were fully built according to the state-of-the-art technology, fully according to the standards at that time. They were even optimized for efficiency and functionality. But still, this building had such a negative implication to human societies that we still see it today in a foreign continent. That means a structure that we build can outlast the life of the builder by very far. We always have to consider that. That means we are responsible for what we are building, and therefore we have to make sure that technology and standardization exist to serve to the society, to the economy, to the environment, and to humanity. And only then we can talk about a sustainable built environment. That means human beings have to interact and they have to communicate, and in order to make a construction process and the built environment more sustainable, decisions have to be taken by different people from different disciplines, and we have to make sure that they interact adequately. And they need guidance. And in the world there are many documents on sustainability. Most of them are very helpful tools. Often they are very inspirational. Sometimes they are a bit strongly driven by stakeholder interests, or by certain materials experts. They are often focused on policies, on technologies, specific materials, stakeholders, and so on and so on. So there is a huge jungle of documents. But many of them have the same trend to say, we have to do this. Someone has to put the framework, and then we can do this. First, someone has to act, then we can act. If we don't do this, this will not happen, and so on. So these are very generic phrases without real guidance of people to act, and typically always pushing the responsibility to someone else or another group. And that, in this sense, doesn't make it too helpful. And this is what the Globe Consensus wants to change. The Globe Consensus clearly states that the built environment does have a responsibility and a need to act. And the Globe Consensus, which is the short word for the Global Consensus on Sustainability in the Built Environment, wants to clearly address the global community, politicians, industry leaders, and societal decision makers to focus on the importance of the built environment for sustainable developments. And it wants to really call for appropriate actions to make the future of the built environment resilient, adequately safe, and socially, environmentally, and economically sustainable. So it really calls for a paradigm shift in the entire built environment, something which in this figure on the right side is indicated, something which is more holistic, more circular, and more interdisciplinary. Nothing less than a transformative and united worldwide effort from all stakeholders of the construction sector is required to be successful in sustainable developments on all scales. And that also means that we have to step back from this hierarchical, unidirectional decision-making process that we face today in the construction business. We have to come to a situation where all information is provided and people are communicating all together, having all information available to finalize in a real sustainable project. And the Globe Consensus wants to be a guideline for that and would really provide tangible guidance and help for that. So this is what many, many documents and initiatives are looking at. But why is the Globe Consensus different? The reason is that now the institutions, those that you can see here on the right side, that have a global impact on policies, on standardization, on research, on technology, on trends for the future. These associations work together. It's a huge network of experts, probably the highest qualification level of experts you can have. And these associations and the individuals are going to communicate this to a broader public. So we've got the International Association for Bridge and Structural Engineering, the International Council for Research and Innovation in Building and Construction, the European Convention for Construction and Steelwork, the International Federation for Structural Concrete, the Réunion Internationale des Laboratoires et Experts de Matériaux, and the International Association for Shell and Spatial Structures. They are all liaised within the Joint Committee of Structural Safety. So they are meeting together to work on structural safety issues. And that is where it comes from. The Globe Consensus was triggered by a workshop that took place at the Tongji University, a workshop under the umbrella of the JCSS. And therefore, for a long time, the Globe Consensus had the draft title Tongji Consensus. That was in June 2019. And due to the importance of the initiative, the Liaison Committee of the JCSS mandated a task force to review and revise the document. That happened in November 2019. Then we had a lot of physical and virtual meetings between representatives of the different associations. And since August 2020 already, there is a website where the Globe Consensus was published, not only in English, but also in German, in French, in Arabic, in Chinese, in Kiswahili, Spanish, and Portuguese, and more languages are going to come. And now, since just recently, July 2021, everything has also been formally concluded under the umbrella of the JCSS, the Joint Committee on Structural Safety, where all those associations are liaised. A memorandum of understanding was formulated between all the partner associations and signed with an annex that contains an action plan of possible actions that can be taken over the course of the next years. And the Joint Committee of the Globe Consensus was formed as a spin-off of the JCSS. What has happened so far? The website exists. Please visit the website if you haven't done that. You can also see the different translations in different languages. And you can also become a supporter of Globe, either as an individual or as an organization. And here you can just see some example of organizational supporters and of individual supporters. You can also leave a statement to give your own opinion about the matters. The longer the list is, the more power will be given to the Globe Consensus to have political and policy influence. And then an action plan was developed, which is not, it's more like a recommendation of possible actions that can be taken in the future. I'm not going to elaborate on that complicated flowchart, but I want to highlight certain items. A core element will be a web page, which is considered to be, first of all, a public entry point for everybody who is interested in sustainability of the built environment. There should be a lot of information with background documents, blogs, videos, statements, podcasts, and so on. And it should also be an internal web platform for the Globe members, the committee workers, and the partners of Globe. This all to provide a platform for information, for operation, and also for fundraising. The next steps will be content in form of publications and events, scientific or public events, and also social media content, which is very important. And in order to create this content, we want to operate in different working parties that are going to be formed over the course of the next couple of weeks and months. One working party will take the information that is already existing within the associations and bring this all together so that we avoid to repeat work that has already been done. And a second working party will work on materials and technologies. A third working party will work on policies. And a fourth working party will work on the dissemination to the different target groups. And this will all be linked by some crossover topics such as resource consumptions and emissions and circularity, scalability or value chain, livelihood creation, and so on, which is important for all of the work within the working parties. So since the JCGC, the Joint Committee of the Globe Consensus, has been formed formally as an institution, it has to follow certain objectives that have been formulated in this Memorandum of Understanding. They are a little bit more complicated, but in a nutshell, these are stakeholder and public awareness raising, knowledge development, taking influence on regulative frameworks, and education. There is a board which is composed of the JCSS members and also the reporters of the activities. Fundraising is an important aspect because at the moment Globe doesn't have any funds. It all is based on the work of people who do that in their spare time to contribute to a better built environment. But it's necessary to start raising funds, and as JCGC exists now, funds can be raised. But it has to be ensured that Globe is always independent of stakeholder interest. It always should be based on scientific foundation. And in an ideal case, the funding will make it possible to have a secretariat to keep the ball rolling and make sure that there's a permanent flow of information and content and communication. For the actions, we have to recruit dedicated individuals that have the knowledge and the time and the will to contribute to the objectives of Globe. There's not really a priority list of actions that we want to take in a certain order, but rather do we want to collect those experts and the knowledge bases that already exists that can bring something forward to really create something on the basis of the expertise of these people. We expect a lot of input from the youth chapters of the different associations involved in that, and at least the Rilem Youth Council has already signalized that they are willing to support that, but certainly the Rilem Youth Council does a lot of things, and these people who are members in the Rilem Youth Council are also busy with bringing their own careers forward, a PhD thesis and so on. So certainly they should not be overburdened, but certainly they will be a very, very important source of information and inspiration towards the globe consensus. So what can everybody individually do? Visit the website, sign in as a supporter. Please feel free to leave a statement and to convince your institution to become an institutional supporter, which is even a stronger support of the activities of Globe. And become active in the activities in the working parties. If you are interested in that, it's easy to really bring in your knowledge and your dedication to create content, maybe an event or a publication or a white paper. This is all of highest importance. So the next steps, what will happen in the actions in the future, will be decided on the 30th September of 2021 in the kickoff workshop. And then we will see, but please everybody who is member of one of the associations mentioned before, everybody can contribute, and I would really kindly like to ask you not to be shy to get in contact with any of us. So please get in contact with any of the people listed here or other people you will find on the website of the Globe Consensus. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your kind attention.